Hi, I'm Leslie Anderson. I'm the Director of Collections, Exhibitions, and Programs at the National Nordic Museum in Seattle. It's my pleasure to introduce this program, Meet the Ski Jumping Legends, Ragnar Ulland and Ron Steele, which is offered in conjunction with a special exhibition, Sublime Sights, Ski Jumping in Nordic America. The exhibition was organized by the National Nordic Museum in coordination with the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum, and it's been supported by People's Bank. The exhibition examines the role that the Pacific Northwest's Norwegian American community played in the development of the sport, which traces its origins to Norway. In the exhibition, visitors will learn about the conditions that were favorable to the sport, the successful athletes, Norwegian American men and women who took it up, and the sizable crowds that cheered it on. It presents images, film, oral history interviews, equipment, sporting attire, and memorabilia that bring this story to life. For more information about this topic, please do visit the exhibition at the National Nordic Museum. Tune into our other exhibition-related programs or pick up a copy of the publication that accompanies this exhibition, Ski Jumping in Washington State, A Nordic Tradition. It was written by John Lundin with a foreword by the National Nordic Museum's CEO and Executive Director, Eric Nelson. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our esteemed guests, Ragnar Ulland and Ron Steele.
Hello, I am Kirby Gilbert, a ski historian with the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum on Snoqualmie Pass. I'm here today with my friend Ragnar Ulland. He's one of the last great Kongsberg ski jumpers that we are lucky to have here in Washington State. I'd like to say a few words about Ragnar, a little introduction for you all if you aren't familiar with him. Ragnar was born into a large family of ski jumpers in Kongsberg, Norway. Growing up in Norway, Ragnar became an accomplished jumper, reaching distances over 100 feet consistently before age 10. At age 14, in 1951, Ragnar came to Seattle to join his father and other Ullands who planted roots here. During his first ski season here, Ragnar notched 5 first-place finishes in the Northwest, and the next year, at age 16, he began jumping in Class A events, consistently taking second in tournaments, even beating his legendary Uncle Olav Ulland. In 1955, he won the National Junior Jumping Ski Championships at Leavenworth, where he tied the hill record with a standing leap of 284 feet. With a 4th place win at the tryouts for the upcoming Winter Olympics, he landed a coveted spot on the U.S. ski team. Competing for the U.S. in the 1956 Winter Olympics in Cortina, Italy, Ragnar was age 18, a senior at Roosevelt's High School, and the youngest member of a ski jumping team to ever compete in the Olympics. With very challenging practice conditions at Cortina, Italy, Ragnar took a terrible spill and badly hurt his lower back and was not able to compete in the final competitions. However, once back in the Northwest in 1958, he rallied and took 3rd in the Northwest Championships at Leavenworth with a long jump of 283 feet, 1 foot shy of his previous hill record. Ragnar was said to have mastered the Finnish torpedo style at that point in his career. He went on that year to set a hill jumping record at 224 feet at Multipore Hill near Mount Hood. Today, Ragnar is retired in Mount Vernon. He looks back very favorably on his ski jumping days and sometimes makes trips back to Norway to visit his Kongsberg relatives and friends. With that, we are lucky to have Ragnar here today at the National Nordic Museum, and we have a few questions for you, Ragnar.
Great.
But maybe you could just start by telling us a little bit about you learning to ski jump growing up in Kongsberg, Norway.
Okay, I fortunately was part of a family, several guys that were involved in ski jumping in Kongsberg, and of course I didn't have any choice coming from that particular town, which was so well known for the ski jumping sport. Starting out at about age 5 and 6, roaming around in the farm fields outside my hometown. And then as I got older, we had a lot of rock fences scattered all the way around the farm fields, and we built little takeoffs on those rock fences and start jumping. And probably jumped 10 to 20 feet at that time, 6, 7 years old of age. And as time progressed, when I started jumping in the regular junior ski jumping tournaments at age 11, and I progressed from there 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Of course, at age 14 I came to this country, so things changed after that. But basically that's how it started.
Wow, that's fascinating. What did ultimately bring you to the United States?
A very unique thing happened. My uncle, my dad's brother, who was actually coming in 1947, my Uncle Olav, who already lived in Seattle, had sponsored him, and he was ready to go, and all of a sudden he got sick and unfortunately passed away. And my dad kind of all of a sudden decided he wanted to, maybe I'll take a trip to the States. So he was able to transfer his ticket that he had already purchased and his all the other admission papers. So he ended up coming in 1947. I was still in grade school at that time, so he wanted me to finish school in Norway. He left me behind. I lived with my aunt and uncle till 1951. At that time, my dad decided to bring me over to the States, and been there ever since.
Oh. Wow, interesting. Once you were here in the United States, as a ski jumper, did you need to be affiliated with a local ski club to be able to jump?
Yes. When I first came, all of us were members of a club called the Seattle Ski Club, which was located up at Snoqualmie Pass. They had a cabin up there, and we spent a lot of the weekends sleeping overnight in the cabin and jumping on the hill that was close by, and also the bigger hills, Beaver Lake, which I had on top of above Snoqualmie Pass. And and eventually in 1954, we kind of split away from Seattle Ski Club and started a new club called the Kongsbergers, which is the name of my hometown in Norway. And we built a ski jump a little bit further south of the Snoqualmie Pass summit, down by Cabin Creek, and built jumping hills there in a little cabin, and turned out fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Wow, that's great. We all see records and headlines from newspapers of those times about jumping events, but can you tell us a little bit about what was a typical experience going to a local jumping tournament, say at Leavenworth or somewhere in the 1950s? What was that like? How did that all work?
Well, for me, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of sleepless nights, because I got so worked up about a forthcoming tournament that was going to happen, and I knew I'm going to have a lot of stiff competition, and I think most athletes, they get kind of competition nervousness. But still, we were very excited to take off wherever we went, whether it's Leavenworth, with Bend, Oregon, Mount Hood in Oregon, Revelstoke in Canada. And the preparation to go to those tournaments, usually like Bend, Oregon, we would carpool, meet at somebody's place, and drive to the area that way. At the site, we would usually have a pre-tournament party the night before the tournament, and had a great time. Met all our fellow competitors, and really enjoyed ourselves.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your views on how ski jumping has changed since you were active? And importantly, we don't have ski jumping here in Washington State. We don't have it any longer after the 1970s, but maybe just tell us a little bit about your views about ski jumping and how it evolved and changed.
Ski jumping has changed quite a bit. Started in the early 70s, if I remember correctly. There was a Swedish guy who was a ski jumper and never could get anywhere as far as distance-wise. So he was fiddling around, and eventually he ended up creating a style that is today called the V-style of ski jumping. And he found that he had more surface to carry himself, his body, and his skis through the air, and as a result he was increasing tremendous distances. So that kind of changed the whole ski jumping design, I guess I would want to call it, and it's been that way ever since. The hills today are, for those of you who follow ski jumping, are built a lot bigger than they were back in our days. Leavenworth was considered to be a big hill. We jumped, well, it ended up to be about 340, 50-foot hill, where now they jump in, 140, 50 meters, so it's quite a bit bigger. And the other big thing is changed ski jumping. These guys that are jumping today, especially the guys that are on top, they don't go to a tournament unless they get paid. They have to get, if you're a winner, one of the top jumpers, you get pretty good income on an annual basis. Where we had to pay to go to a tournament and share gas expense and whatever, and sometimes the lodging. So it's been a big change.
Oh, well, that's fascinating. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Ragnar. I hope you have a chance to walk around the museum today too.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
In his jumping days, Ron Steele made quite an impression.
The U.S. ski team says he knows no fear up there.
He knows the fear, but he conquers it. He went 446 feet earlier. He's our national champion. Good takeoff. Now he's pushing. Look at him.
I'm John Lundin, a ski historian and author with the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum. Today it's my pleasure to interview Ron Steele, a Leavenworth native who was one of Washington's most successful ski jumpers and competed at a national and international level and had a truly distinguished career. Ron was born and raised in Leavenworth, Washington, which was one of the state's centers for ski jumping from 1928 through 1978. And Ron's entire family was involved with the Leavenworth Winter Sports Club. Ron made his first jump at 5, won his first ski trophy at 8 in slalom, and at 12 he won 6 different competitions. And at age 13 he competed in the Junior Nordic Championships. At age 14, Ron entered the junior class competition and advanced to jump on Leavenworth's giant 90-meter hill at age 15. Ron was a member of at the 1972 Leavenworth tournament. Ron was selected for the U.S. Winter Olympic team for the 1972 Olympic Games in Sapporo, Japan, and he was the youngest member of that team. And at the Olympics, in the large hill competition, he was the highest finishing American, placing 25th. Ron was a member of the U.S. ski jumping team from 1972 to 1974. In 1974, he won the U.S. National Championships, competing at Leavenworth, his hometown, and competed in the World Championships in Sweden. He attended the University of Utah from 1974 to 1978, where he was a 3-year All-American, won the Senior National Jumping Championships in 1974, was an NCAA ski jumping champion in 1977, and received many, many honors and awards. Ron was inducted into the American Ski Jumping Hall of Fame in 2008, the Intermountain Ski Hall of Fame in 2016, and the University of Utah's Crimson Club Hall of Fame in 2018. Ron spent most of his professional career working for Group Rossignol North America, becoming its president in 2012. He's now retired, living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and will soon become the chairman of the board of trustees for the Elf Engen Ski Museum Foundation in Park City. Welcome, Ron, and thanks for being with us. Jim Brennan, also from Leavenworth, who was a 1960 national champion, said that Leavenworth had 900 inhabitants when he grew up, and of those, 200 were jumpers. And when he was young, his dad put him on skis as soon as he could walk. Can you describe growing up in Leavenworth, what it was like with its major jumping hill in your own backyard, how you learned the sport, and who are the early influences in your career?
John, let me answer your question a bit later here, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be interviewed, and thank you for the opening there. Very humbled by the accolades given and the awards I've received, but growing up in Leavenworth was quite a unique experience, and your question directed what Jimmy Brennan said at that point in time, and Jimmy Brennan was known as Jimmy Brennan to us, and he was someone we idolized and someone that we wished to become like and have the accomplishments he had. Essentially a very small town. I believe you have the history of it. It's about 1,500 people nestled up against the Cascade Mountains on the eastern side. And ski jumping was something that the town embraced through the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And growing up for me was, I didn't know any different. I mean, it wasn't something I had to really immerse myself into. Everybody was involved. Whether you skied or didn't ski, or you jumped or you didn't jump, everybody was involved with the activity. And the Leavenworth Winter Sports Club was with arms embracing the Norwegian culture of the activity, and they brought a lot of international skiers coming in from different countries, as well as the top-ranked national skiers from the USA and Canada. And it just became part of our life and our lifestyle. And you were unique if you didn't participate in ski jumping as a young kid. And you started at those ages, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And then I think as you became better, more accomplished, you may have moved to other activities. But I look back, I could probably name all of my grade school and junior high kids that jumped with me, because that's what we did in the wintertime. And everybody did it, as I said, John. It was just part of the activity.
And who were the early influences? Did you have people that coached you? Your father involved?
Yeah,
how did you really learn the technical aspects of the sport?
Yeah, you know, it was many hands were really out there helping us along, and you had obviously the influence of these athletes that were accomplished that would come to our hometown and display their skills and enjoy the Nordic sports. Those individuals are names that research would show that they're very accomplished in their days too. The Ulland family out of Seattle, the Patterson families out of Seattle, you know, we had the international competitors coming in from different parts of the world that would have some little ability to touch these young adults. I remember vividly an experience in my yard at my home where we had a small slope going away from the house into the neighbor's yard, and we had a good probably 50, 60 yards. And Keith Wegman was the gentleman's name, and you probably have to dig deep in the history to find him, but he was a jumper, and he built this little jump out of apple box and put snow on it and made an in run, and he used to slide me down and lift me off and drop me on the snow and let me ski away. So those people had a level of influence somewhere in my career and somewhere in the other jumpers' careers in those areas. Yeah, my father, certainly, definitely an influence. My mother, an influence. My brother, my sisters. My father and mother never skied. They immigrated from the Midwest, and they just got caught up in the kind of the lifestyle and the activity, and they were involved with it. And then coaching locally, the Bakke family was a big family that definitely embraced the activity and got us all really involved and were coaches of ours. And then as we moved into the junior ranks in the high school, you know, we got more to a formalization of coaching. A gentleman by the name of Rich Hawk coached me in the high school period, and Knut Bakke coached me. And so, you know, all these are influences. And I opened this up and talking about Jimmy Brennan. I mean, I'd never had any direct coaching for Jimmy Brennan, but it was somebody that, you know, I would look at the scrapbooks, I would read the articles, my parents would show me that stuff, and those things happen.
Could you tell us how important tournaments were to Leavenworth and the effort it took from everyone in the town to put those on year after year after year? And they went almost 60 years.
Oh my gosh, that's a big question, because it was very important to the town of Leavenworth. And if you could dig into this deep and really find out, as I mentioned about the activity early on, for us, as much as for the activity, for the competition, and for that tournament, the first weekend in February seemed to be the date that we always chose for this large tournament. That doesn't mean we didn't have other competitions going on. We had local level, junior level, such as that, but the big international competition was kind of the pivotal point for the entire community for the entire 12-month period. And everything was built up to that. You know, summer preparation, fall preparation, making sure the hill was prepared to take the snow, to have the snow on the hill, to be able to hold the tournament. And that went to great lengths at some points in time. I recall the 1967 tournament, we kind of called it the mud tournament. We had unseasonably warm weather. We had the Chinook winds blow through, melt all the natural snow. We trucked in snow from miles away, and they came up with an elaborate system of hauling the snow up in the hill and putting it down. You know, that consumed everybody in the town. But even on the good snow years, when all that stuff didn't have to happen, you'd go downtown Leavenworth. Wasn't quite like it is today. Obviously, the Bavarian Village has kind of consumed the town another direction. But during the periods leading up to the competition, the different store owners would paint their windows with murals of ski jumping competitions, and they'd have contests between different stores for the best mural. We always had a snow queen that was picked out of the high school ranks, and 2 attendants that would be the snow queen for the Leavenworth tournament. And, you know, you'd have every individual from the barber shop to the grocery store, to the plumbing store, to the hardware stores, to the hospital, whatever. They did something that engaged themselves into this competition on an annual basis. And, you know, it was something that I just didn't know anything different. I'm born in 53, and that was my life until I left there in 74 to go to school.
And of course, you had the luxury of seeing all the U.S. Olympians and all literally the international jumping stars from all over the world come and compete at Leavenworth.
Yes, I did. I mean, that was something that made an indelible impression on myself. You know, I've got pictures of myself with some of those gold medalists from 64 and 68, Toralfingen and Bjorn Verkula, in my home. My father was very active in the Leavenworth Sports Club. So what would happen is, we didn't have a lot of hotel accommodations in a small town of 1,500 people. So local families would host these international competitors, and then they would go and, you know, they would sleep in our home. They would have my mom's food, and they'd be part of our family for that 3 or 4 day period.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of chances. That was the international, but also the U.S. level athletes too. You know, I rubbed elbows with a lot of those. And as a younger man in my preteen and teen years, you know, idolizing the Balfance brothers, Scott Larricks, and the older Martin, Jay Martin, and such as that, as were all these individuals that, you know, we knew about, we heard about, we read about, we got to see, we got to mill around, and yes, that's something that
that's great.
Mark.
I have to ask you this as a non-ski jumper. We tend to think that you guys were crazy to go off those huge jumps and fly through the air like you did. What was the sport like from a jumper's perspective, and how'd you handle the danger and possible risk of injury with the excitement and exhilaration of the sport itself?
You know, I typically answer that question in the way there was no fear. And it's not that I'm a daredevil. You know, I have fear, like I think any human being does. But you mentioned I started at age 5. I think that fear at that level and that size of hill you're jumping on, fear doesn't come into it. Excitement, exhilaration comes into it. So as you progress, as you get older, you start to get on the bigger hills, and the bigger hills. And so it just becomes part of the activity. You don't think about fear. Even in difficult conditions, such as a high wind area, or you'd have some difficult snow conditions, I never felt fear. And I always looked at it as we're doing everything straight down the hill. We jump in these tracks, we go straight down the hill, we go off the takeoff, we fly through there, we land on the hill on a slope, and we go through the transition, we turn and we stop. I look at these downhill racers and some of these other skiing activities as being a little bit more risky than the ski jumping. But, you know, I think a lot of this image people have, if they watch the ABC Wild World of Sports, The Agony of Defeat, you saw the jumper unfortunately fall in the end run, and that was really kind of that. Here's the marquee, what happens in ski jumping, somebody's going to get hurt, and that happens to you. That's a very rare occasion. Yeah. I mean, in a typical season, most jumpers would fall 1 or 2 times. I mean, on a level, you wouldn't jump and fall that often. So,
well, that's great to hear your perception.
You just needed to start when you're 5 years old, there, John.
Yeah,
when it should have happened.
If I can turn back the clock, maybe I will. You were a star at the University of Utah in the mid to late 70s. The sport was still big then. What happened to ski jumping since then, and why don't we see much of it anymore?
Well, if you rewind it back through the 50s and 60s, it was part of the winter culture in these towns. You'd go to Sun Valley, you'd go to outside of Portland, Oregon, you'd go over to Mount Spokane, you'd go to Snoqualmie Summit. It was just part of an activity that was accessible to individuals to participate in. As downhill skiing became more popular, more available, equipment kind of evolved, I think the thrill and the excitement and the ease of entry into that sport was a little easier for some young men and women. So that could have an impact, I think, at one point in time. But it was also part of the curriculum at school. I mean, we had ski teams at Leavenworth. Bellevue High School had a ski team. I remember members of those that jumped with my brother. It was 7 years older than I am. And so you had this kind of system that kind of just really accommodated the sport and the activity. As those went away, you also took opportunities away for men and women to be involved with the sport itself. And then you'd move from high school. If you weren't picked up the U.S. national team, which I was, and I graduated in 71, so I went to the national team and was selected for 72 Olympics, as you in the opening said. Had that not happened, I would have gone to college right away. But being picked up with the national team, I wanted to take that opportunity. But after a 3-year period of pursuing that, then I decided to go to college. Well, I had that option to go to college. We had collegiate ski jumping. And that was prevalent through the 50s and the 60s. And if you look at the history there is a tremendous amount of big names in our sport of ski jumping that either came from Norway or Sweden or Finland to ski competitive colleges, or a lot of big names from the US or Canada also came down to go to college here in the US. That was still available for me. I took the chance. I went there. Best thing I did from that perspective. But in 1980, collegiate ski jumping went away. A couple factors, primarily, it was more of a facilities issue. They didn't have a lot of opportunities to have a host school host a ski jump, a cross country race, and an alpine race together. So they had really kind of facilities issues. And that was probably one of the biggest factors that pushed into it. Once that went away, you also make an impact on ski jumping. And it's a unique sport. It takes a special facility. It takes a special type of culture within a community to make it all happen. And that doesn't exist in as much as it used to, but it's still got these it's got the Wispy, Wisconsin, the Iron Mountain, Michigans, Ironwood, Michigans, and places like that, Minneapolis, they're still out there. And they're still turning out ski jumpers. And, there's been some really good US jumpers, over the years. Never really kind of were able to get on the par with the international competitors, but just maybe one half step to a step behind. But a lot of that had to do, in my mind, with the training opportunities that were given some of those international athletes and the funding that they were given over a period of time.
That kind of leads me to my last question. That you participated in the Olympics and World Championships. What was it like for a U.S. jumper to compete with the best athletes at that level? And how did the U.S. jumpers stack up during your career?
Well, during, the height of my career was, early 70s through mid 70s. And we were always viewed as having a lot of potential. I think there was factors that played into it with the American teams at points in time that we didn't get as much training. And that's just because facilities weren't available. We didn't have a lot of dryland training specific to the activity with plastic jumps and such as that. Wind tunnel testing was not done during my period of time. So we were kind of outgained by the fact that a lot of the international teams were in wind tunnels, testing techniques and aerodynamics aspects such as that. We're just like a step and a half behind them, but we were always respected. By the Japanese teams, the Norwegian teams, the Swedish teams. In my day, it was Eastern Germany, it was East Germany, it was Czechoslovakia, it was Russia, USSR, and such as that. And so we were always very well respected. They knew at some point in time, one of us could break through. I remember World Championships in Sweden. I had one of the best trial rounds of anybody in the competition, but I think that did something to me. So my next two jumps weren't as good. And I think I got thinking too much and those things happen. But it was quite an experience. I go back to the experience. I mean, this is a young 17-year-old out of high school. I get named to the team, so I'm training hard. I go to competitions in Iron Mountain, Michigan, Westview, Wisconsin. I'm setting second through 4 competitions out of 6. I come to my hometown of Leavenworth for the final 2 competitions. And I tell you, the spirits of that town and just the crowd and just being there made an impact. And I was able to finish second in those competitions and then be selected for the team. So my first international trip was to Tokyo, Japan, and then up to Sapporo. So I never traveled outside of Canada, the U.S., and I'm heading over there. And it was, and that's where Japan went 1, 2, 3 on the small hill, and Wojciech Fortuna, Polish skier, won the gold on the large hill. It was quite the experience. One I live through almost every day because of the memorabilia that I have around my home.
I'll bet. Well,
yeah.
You and certainly the whole town of Leavenworth have so much to be proud of and such a wonderful tradition. It's great to celebrate it with our exhibition we're doing now.
Yeah.
Now you're going to provide us with a film clip. Can you tell us a little bit about where that took place and what it shows?
Well, the film clip we're speaking of, I don't know specifically which one we have, but it could be the one from Ironwood, Michigan, ski flying. And it was taken in 1974. And I say my marquee year was 73, 74. That was the year that everything seemed to click. I was national champion, North American champion. I was ski flying champion, such as that. So it was taken at the large hill in Ironwood, Michigan, which was a ski flying hill, which was like 4 of them in the world at that point in time. That's where we're creating distance over 120 meters and flying through the air for long distances. Yeah.
That's scary and very impressive. Ron, thank you so much. This has been terrific. Thank you for sharing your memories with us. And I'm sure that when we show this, it's going to be a big hit, and appreciate your time and everything you've done for the sport.
Well, thank you very much, John. And thanks to everybody that put this thing together. And I'm looking forward to getting up and seeing the museum, and obviously looking forward to the events coming up. Thank you.
Good. Thanks.
First of all, I'm Ragnar Yulin, and you probably know me very well from the old days. And it's been a long time no see, Ron. I didn't realize yet you were settled down in Salt Lake City, but it's a great place. So I'm just anxious to hear more about your life up to now and what's going on otherwise.
Well, Ragnar, obviously Ron Steele, born and raised Leavenworth, Washington, a place that you spent a tremendous amount of time, man. And I'm sure we'll get into some chatting about this, but relative to your influence on my life and my career. And, you know, to this day at 67 years old, I can still have the memories of yourself and your uncle and others out of the Seattle market, you know, coming over to Leavenworth and enjoying the Nordic sport. I've been down in Salt Lake since 1974. I was recruited to go to school down here after the 74 Nationals in Leavenworth and 74 Worlds in Sweden, and decided to take the leap and go to college. And I grabbed a couple other teammates from the U.S. ski team at that time, and we started the Nordic team here at Utah. Gentlemen you probably know by the name of Mats Jensen, skied for U of U. Fritjof Pritz skied for the U of U. Bassi, I think, was his nickname. And so a little bit of heritage down here, and it all worked out. I mean, I left the ski team in 77, finished up 77, 78 at school, and I got a job at Rosignol Ski Company. And I had a career there and retired in September 2018. And my stints were up in Washington, then moved back down to Utah, and then that's how I got down here. And, you know, down here, Ragnar, you know, the Ulland family is synonymous, you know, with the Ingen family. You know, the Ingen family here, very influential with the Nordic sports here. And, you know, Ulf Ingen, you know, like your uncle, like your dad, you know, just that Norwegian blood that just kind of leaked into myself. I had a Norwegian grandmother on my dad's side, but Dad and Mom never skied. They never skied. Dad got involved with officiating. He volunteered at the club, but I look back and I think of all the history and all the impressions that yourself and other individuals out of the Seattle Puget Sound market made. I mean, you made that trek to Leavenworth many times, and I remember, I'm 67. I'm going to guess you're just a little over 80. I don't know for sure. I don't want to.
83.
83.
Yeah.
So you're 16 years older than I am. So, I was a teenager, 15, 16, 17, probably not really very, smart then. And I would watch a guy like you, Fritz Patterson. I can't dig up all the names right now. I'm sure they're right at the tip of your tongue. And in that aspect of it, you'd come over and you'd help us prepare. Well, you would prepare the hill along with the Leavenworth volunteers. And I have these vivid memories, Ragnar, of you always setting track. And you had a propensity of keeping your skis kind of close together. I don't know if you knew that on the track.
Yeah.
And we'd always complain a little bit because Ragnar set tracks, and
right.
We'd have to work the track out a little wider for us guys that didn't keep the tracks that close. So then, did you jump, under the Kongsberger Club level? Is that where your banner was, the Kongsberger Club?
Yeah, well, we organized that club in 1954 up on the other side of Snoqualmie Pass.
Right.
And we built, you jumped on that hill.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We built those hills in that little cabin we had there. And now it's a big, of course, the old timers are faded away, but they're still operating. They're mostly cross country now.
So the club still exists as the Kongsberger.
Strong. They got over 100 members.
Wow. And who were your teammates around the Seattle market? What were some of the names that you jumped with?
Well, that time was, Asbjørn Lundteigen, Asbjørn Norheim, Fritz Patterson was, besides my dad and Olav, and my cousin Kjell jumped a little bit.
Yeah, was Fritz older than you?
Oh yeah, Fritz. Oh yeah. Yeah, he was, he must have been about, I think, 10 years older than me.
Yeah. He was always that classic man that came to Leavenworth and stepped out a hill, side packed it, groomed it immaculately, and would go up and take those jumps. The great memories from that aspect of.
Well, my life, of course, you left. What year did you move down to Salt Lake?
74. Well, fall 74. So
yeah. Well, of course, I ran my Uncle Olav. I worked for him in the sporting goods stores.
Yeah.
And I ended up running the Northgate Mall store from 1972 to 95. till we closed up. And pretty busy, working in a retail business.
Yeah.
So.
Is that it was 95? Did they close all the OU sports?
Yeah, they closed. Well, actually, Denver. Trying to think of the name.
Guard Sports.
Guard Sports. They were after Olaf and his partner to buy us out, and then the guys decided not to do it, so they just closed the doors.
Okay. So you never went the route of officiating, did you? After you retired jumping?
Who's? Did
you go start to get your judge's certification or anything?
No.
You never did that?
No, I never got I was too busy working to, yeah, so.
So do you remember your last jump?
My last jump?
Where and when and what day?
Boy, I remember it like it happened yesterday. It was in Leavenworth. On that little D hill we had behind the lodge.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't behind the lodge when I left. It was on the other side. Then they put it behind the lodge.
Behind the lodge on the right-hand side, kind of tucked in the hill. That's Kjell Bucky kept that going.
Yeah.
For years. But anyway, we had, you remember Mart Liikane, the Estonian?
I can see his telemark right now.
Well, he decided he was going to have the Estonian Olympics. So he gathered a bunch of us together, and we had jumping and downhill and ice skating down in Wenatchee. So he combined those three sports to become a Estonian Olympic champion. Anyway, we had the jumping tournament on a little D hill.
Oh my gosh.
And I was about 60. Yeah, I must have been about 60, close to 60. That was the last time I jumped.
Did you have any apprehension of strapping them on and putting them on top of the hill?
Yeah. Well, I got second, I think. Oh, gosh, think of his name now. His dad has a motel in downtown Leavenworth.
Oh, Robbie Johnson.
Robbie. Yeah. Yeah, he won the
Robbie's
class.
a couple years younger than me, so he had an age benefit on you.
Yeah, Rob, I guess he's still over there running the motel or hotel or whatever he had, the inn.
Yeah, Indian Inn, and he's also very active with some developments over there and some different properties and high-end hotels and such. That Robbie, and his dad was Bob Johnson.
Right.
Was his dad. So you jumped. See, I was, let's see, my last jump was in 1978 in March in Franconia, New Hampshire, the last NCAA championships that we had. And I didn't think that was going to be my last jump, but I went back to school and decided to hang them up, and so that was, that was done in 77 or 78. So that was a long time ago. I didn't jump when I was 60. No.
Well, I probably wouldn't have either if he hadn't. He just absolutely had to have me there. So it was fun.
Do you get to watch any of it today on the TV at the Olympic channel?
I watch it all the time. I just watched the World Championship in Germany in Oberstdorf.
Yeah, Oberstdorf. Yeah, unbelievable.
Playing out all the ski flying. We had one of the top jumpers in the world now. Is from Gangerud. He's from Norway. The Norwegians are finally getting back into being among the top, where the Austrians and Yugoslavs have been dominating.
Well, in my day on the international circuit, it was East Germans, the Russians,
right,
the Czechs.
Yeah.
That was, and then in 72 we had the Japanese team was,
right,
obviously with Kasaya and Aochi and those guys. And remember they jumped at Leavenworth too, and that was always the beauty of Leavenworth is we'd have these first weekend of February, we'd always have the Leavenworth tournament and the local clubs and the help of your dad. Well, probably your uncle more. I don't know for Ryder, but it had that connection through Yosh, I think, to bring those Japanese jumpers over. Right. But we had Werkela, Bjorn Werkela. Torolf Ingen stayed at my house.
Oh, he did, yeah.
And I have a picture of me and him, just setting next to each other. I just cherished that.
Right.
And last year at the NCAA championships up in Bozeman, Montana, I went up to cheer on the Utah Utes, and I ran into, and I hadn't seen him for 25 years, Jan Stenerud.
Oh yeah, Jan, he was a kicker on the football team.
Yeah, but remember, he came to school at Montana State as a ski jumper.
Yeah. But anyway, I hope to talk to you again. Yeah, I got your phone number.
Well,
I'll give you a call. We can talk some more.
Incredible.
All right. Take care.
Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.